Baltutis, can you put yourself out? Yep, you're on mute. Okay, very good. Okay, so good evening. Apologize for the delay. And anyway, I'll call the meeting to order. I've got some opening remarks. Public meeting is being heard by the City Council Planning Advisory Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The non-elected members of the Planning Advisory Committee are Mr. John Baltutis, Mr. David Joyce, Ms. Catherine Brown, and Mr. Paul Jennings. Citizen appointees may ask questions and participate in the discussion in order to assist in making recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Planning Committee or City Council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council or the local planning appeal board. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Belleville before the related bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Comments received at this public meeting, as well as written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in analysis of the applications that were part of the public meeting tonight. For further information on how to provide comments to the city regarding an application from this public meeting, please email planning@belleville.ca. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future. Any persons wishing to be advised of the Belleville Planning Advisory Committee's recommendations with respect to today's applications are requested to provide their name and address, as well as application in which they have interest in writing to the City of Belleville. So with that, call attendance. I see everyone's present. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Councillor Sanderson.
I have, excuse me, a pecuniary interest on item 7.1, but it's in the next portion of our meeting, but I just want to record it now. It's file B77-119. And okay. The honors are my daughter and son-in-law.
Okay, very good. That'll be noted. Okay, so moving on to the public meeting, 3.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 847 Thrasher Road, 863 Thrasher Road, and 834 Bronk Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File numbers B-77-1121. Owner is Jeff Hannafin and Devin Mulvey, Christopher and Elizabeth Conder, Peter Hollett and Glenda O'Reilly. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors. If I can get staff to present the application.
We just have a staff presentation slide. It's just coming up on the screen here. We'll just have to cycle down 3 slides, Mark. Just one more after that, actually, sorry. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. This application considers the rezoning of 3 abutting properties that were recently subject to consent applications B15-20, B16-20, and B22-20. The consent applications adjusted a common property line between 847 and 863 Thrasher Road and added the northern portion of 847 Thrasher Road to 834 Bronk Road. This is best illustrated in the sketch in the top right corner of the presentation slide. To permit the ongoing use of the properties and reflect the underlying official plan designations, the applicants are requesting the following: to rezone a portion of 847 Thrasher Road and 863 Thrasher Road from prime agriculture zone to a rural residential zone, to rezone a portion of 847 Thrasher Road from prime agriculture zone and development zone to a prime agriculture zone, and to rezone 834 Bronk Road from rural zone with special provisions to a prime agriculture zone. It's important to note that no new development is proposed on the subject lands as a result of these applications. This is just simply to recognize the ongoing use of the properties. And the area zoned hazard on the subject lands will remain unchanged. The official plan designation of the subject lands are agricultural, rural, and environmental protection. No notable correspondence has been received regarding the application from commenting departments and agencies, and no public comments have been received to date. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody speaking in favor of the application? Okay, I guess Mr. Watson will be joining us. Okay. Mr. Watson, you are in the meeting.
Very good. Good evening, committee. I am just strictly here to support the application and answer any questions that might come up.
Okay, thank you. Any question from committee members? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Watson, on the diagram of the property, in the upper left-hand corner, as the property sits now, it's described as hazard. And the proposed zoning is to make it prime ag. So I'm just wondering how a piece of land that's designated hazard can become prime agricultural.
Okay, I'd have to defer that to the planner. She is the one that picked out the designations that we should abide by.
Okay, Ms. McAdam.
I can confirm that there will be no changes to the hazard zoning on the property. So the hazard area would remain the same. It would be the area around the hazard zone that could be subject to change. But the hazard zoning would remain.
Okay, so the chart we're looking at is incorrect then? In the proposed?
The hazard zoning was taken out of the chart just to not unnecessarily complicate items. But below, I believe in the report, there should be something stating that there will be no change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other questions to Mr. Watson? No, I don't see any. Thank you, Mr. Watson. Just looking to staff, is there anyone else registered for this application? No? Okay. So can I get a motion to refer this to the Plan Advisory Committee? Moved by Councillor Culhane, second by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to 3.2, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 1187 Bethel Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1122. Owner is David Latchford and Shelley Ann Stone. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors. And I'll refer to staff to introduce the application, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll just get the presentation slides back on the screen. And it will be the slide below. Yes, that's right. Thank you. The subject land is presently used as a farm with an associated single detached dwelling, a gravel pit, and various agricultural buildings. The property is zoned prime agriculture zone, extractive industrial zone, rural zone, and hazard zone, and is designated rural, mineral aggregate, and environmental protection in our official plan. The rezoning is a condition of consent application B21-20, which severed the existing gravel pit and some surrounding land from the subject land. The severed parcel contains a gravel pit located in the extractive industrial zone, which will be added to the abutting lands located immediately southeast of the subject property. So that's that small triangular portion that is fronting on Bethel Road, zoned M2 as well. A portion of the severed parcel to be rezoned or is proposed to be rezoned from prime agricultural zone to a zone category that would permit parking in association with the existing gravel pit located on the lot addition lands. The area zoned as extractive industrial zone and hazard zone on the severed parcel will remain unchanged, and no changes are proposed to the retained parcel. So those are the surrounding lands. We have not received any notable correspondence from commenting departments and agencies, and we have received no public comments as of this time. I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And do we have Mr. Watson for this one as well? Okay. Mr. Watson, you've joined the meeting again.
Thank you. Again, I'm merely here to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the committee to Mr. Watson? No, I don't see any. Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Thank you.
Anybody else on this application? No? Okay. So I need a motion to refer. Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Williams, all in favor? It's carried. 3.3 is the draft community improvement plan for the city of Belleville and notice of meeting. And so I'll get a motion to put it on the floor at least. Councillor Culhane, second by Councillor Williams. Staff making a presentation here. I know we have a report later.
Yes, I have a small presentation, Mr. Chair. I'll just wait for it to come up. We'll go right to the top in the second slide. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Staff are pleased to present the new draft community improvement plan, or CIP for short, for the city of Belleville. This plan is a result of a tremendous city effort to prioritize the creation of affordable rental housing units across the city, while also continuing to encourage brownfield remediation and redevelopment and downtown vitalization. The direction to develop a new affordable rental housing CIP emerged from the Housing Summit held by the city in March of 2019. The intention of the summit was to discuss the identified affordable housing crisis in the city and provide recommendations for solutions. The Housing Summit concluded that there is specifically a need to increase the supply of affordable rental housing units across the city. As a result of the Housing Summit, Council passed a number of resolutions, which were then consolidated into 7 action items, which are outlined on the table shown in the presentation slide here. One very important item was to create a new affordable rental housing CIP and update the existing brownfield and downtown CIPs, which is action item number 1 highlighted in green here. Next slide, please. Sierra Planning and Management was retained to review and update the existing brownfield CIP, and Dillon Consulting was contracted to prepare the new affordable rental housing CIP, update the downtown CIP, and to develop an innovative master document that coordinates the 3 plans. In December of 2019, a public information center was held to discuss key priorities and needs that should be addressed for both affordable rental housing and the downtown CIPs. The results of the public engagement process and other affordable rental housing CIPs were captured in an interim report that was published in January of this year by our lead project consultant, Dillon Consulting. Next slide, please. As evident in the status column that's now added to the presentation slide, Belleville City Council has already made great progress towards completing these action items. The release of the draft CIP, which includes a new citywide affordable rental housing CIP, is a significant step toward the completion of these resolutions. The plan is designed to be user-friendly to applicants, city staff, and council. We hope this will facilitate a more streamlined approvals process and a greater overall effectiveness with respect to achieving the goals of the CIP. Staff have received some public correspondence to date, which will be addressed in forthcoming recommendation report. Dillon Consulting will now provide a more in-depth presentation with respect to the draft community improvement plan. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have anybody registered? Okay. Dillon Consulting, I guess, will be joining. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for joining.
Problem. And do you have the slide? Oh, wonderful. Is it going to go into a presenter view, or should I just, or a slideshow view, or should I just get rolling?
Yeah, I think he's going to put in the presentation. Okay, if you want to go ahead with your presentation.
Sure. Thank you. So I will provide a brief overview of the community improvement plan. I'll start with our introductions, provide some background information, go through a high-level overview of how the document is set up, and then also allow some time to receive comments and answer any questions. I'll just mention again, as Desta said, that this is a draft, so any input that we do receive here today will be considered when we're refining the final version. Next slide, thank you. So my name is Monica Bellivo. I'm a planner and was the project manager on this project. And with me is Rory. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good evening, members of Planning Committee. It's an honor to present the draft CIP to Belleville. It's a groundbreaking and very innovative approach to accelerating affordable housing to meet a core need in the community. We're honored to be part of this important exercise, and I hope you find the work that we've done is specifically tuned into the needs of the community. Good evening. Thank you very much.
Right. So what is the community improvement plan? It provides a powerful stimulus to implement major initiatives towards specifically defined areas, allows the city to motivate specific development and encourage rehabilitation initiatives, allows the city to provide tax assistance, grants, or loans subject to specific program requirements. And the process that we undertook to get here today was a research and best practice review. We reviewed the existing community improvement programs that Desta noted, the downtown and the Brownfield plans. There was a public open house and a number of stakeholder interviews to identify community needs, the development of the interim report, which identified recommendations to fill the gaps and meet the needs that were identified, the preparation of proposed programs and undertaking of a financial analysis, and then the refinement of those programs and the preparation of the draft community improvement plan. And as it was noted, that Sierra Planning and Management undertook the Brownfields components, and Dillon undertook the other two, the downtown components and the affordable housing, and then consolidated the documents into one easy to use master community improvement plan. As I mentioned, this document combines the three into one document that's intended to increase the supply of affordable rental housing units citywide, increase the supply of rental units downtown, revitalize the downtown building stock, remediate and redevelop brownfield sites. Belleville's CIP has a number of tools or incentives for approved applicants. These include rebates, which are where an applicant would receive money to reimburse incurred expenses on eligible costs to a set maximum. Tax increment equivalent rebates, or TIER, in which an approved applicant receives partial tax relief in the form of a rebate to cover the incremental municipal tax increases that occurs when a property is improved. Cancellations, which is when someone is not required to pay for something that they would normally have to pay for. Reduction, where you only have to pay for a portion of a typical amount. A deferral, where an approved applicant is not required to pay for something now, but would have to at a later date. Those tools were used to create 17 incentive programs. Some of them were existing in the previous CIPs, and some of them are new, all of which were updated to meet the emerging needs of the city. And so these are designed to address the 4 intentions which were previously mentioned. So programs 1 through 6 are intended to increase the supply of affordable rental units citywide. Programs 7 and 8 are intended to increase the supply of rental units downtown. 9 and 12 are intended to revitalize the downtown building stock. And programs 13 through 17 are intended to remediate and redevelop brownfield sites. There are a number of requirements to be eligible for each of the programs to ensure that the incentives will help the city to achieve the goals that are set out in the plan. So there are eligible program areas, general conditions, and conditions that are tied to each of the specific programs. For the eligible areas, these are described in the CIP, where a property must be located within defined areas. And in the full document, there's a table indicating which of the specific programs is applicable to each area. And the defined areas are the entire city of Belleville, the Brownfield priority area, downtown facade area, the downtown facade area with rear frontage onto the Moira River. Go to the next slide, you can see a closer version with more detail. And finally, another slide with a focus on the city center. As I mentioned, there are general conditions which apply to all programs, and then there are also conditions for projects which are intended to create affordable housing units. And these are to ensure they remain affordable in the long run. Details are in the fulsome document. And as an innovation on how a CIP is typically written, both the general conditions and the individual program requirements are designed so that an applicant could print and sign the pages directly for the designated areas, or do so electronically, or use the checklist provided to confirm their eligibility and submit those pages to the city as well as part of their complete application. So here on this slide, there are a couple snippets from the document showing how that's implemented. So there's a little box that says, I agree to these conditions above. So it's clear, it's easy to use. You're not looking for a number of documents to figure out what you need to do to apply for a program. And on the next slide, yeah, perfect. There is an example of the checklist that I mentioned as well. So for a specific requirement, if you were interested in finding out the eligibility, it's an easy to use checklist. And ultimately, the clarity and the ease of use of this document will be beneficial to both applicants of the programs as well as the city in the efficient administration of the programs. And it's intended to enable progress to be made in the short term and realize the CIP goals of facilitating affordable housing, supporting downtown revitalization, seeing the turnover of brownfields for economic development and environmental benefits, and improving the quality of life and community health. I thank you for your attention, and I invite any comments or questions.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just wanted to ask about the word loans. On an earlier slide, it mentioned grants and loans. And it was my understanding from previous council discussion at council meeting that the city could not provide loans. And then I don't see loans used again in any of the pursuant slides. So I just wanted to ask where that fits in.
There are no loans included in this CIP. Rory, I'm not sure if you have any additional details on how loans would be administered if they were applied.
Certainly happy to offer further information in regards to that. So under the Planning Act that enables the municipality to have a CIP and offer the suite of financial incentives, there is a provision for loans. And then many, many years ago, it was quite common to find municipalities offering loans. What's happened over time is the administrative burden for the municipality to actually operate a loan is it's very significant. It essentially requires you to function like a bank, like a lender, and most municipalities just simply do not have the administrative capacity. What we also learned over time is that applicants generally prefer grants. Like everyone loves free cash, and so to the extent that we can design and operationalize programs that are rebates or grants, they tend to take traction very quickly. They have broad pickup, and it helps you achieve the goals that you want from your financial incentive much faster. Loans are a bit of they're a hurdle to overcome. The other thing is in the transition of time, one of the things that's become very advantageous for municipalities to achieve the goals that they want through financial incentives is the tax increment equivalent rebate. And that's why you see reference to that so frequently in this community improvement plan. That's a very robust and can be a very significant benefit to a property owner that's developing in the ways that meet your goals. And when compared to a loan mechanism, it's just way more administratively simpler, and again, is much more effective than a loan in terms of getting applicants to come do the type of development and for you to realize the types of development that you want activated through the CIP. So yes, while we could have loans, generally we very rarely see them operational in Ontario for those reasons, but administrative, ease of application, and it's just simply the take up and the ability to get things turned over quickly, which is really what a CIP is about.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to be clear that we would not be in a position where the municipality would be expected to offer a loan. It's my understanding that our director has stated that that simply won't be done. So that's why I just questioned the addition of the word loans. Otherwise, in your very well done presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Baltutis.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It was very well done. I guess my little confusion on my end is that citywide affordable rental units and houses, again, what does that mean citywide? Are we going to try to move affordable rentals throughout the city in different redevelopments? Instead of right now, it seems to me, and I could be wrong on this, that it seems to be just kind of pushed into one area, and like Potter's Creek seems to have a lot of them, but some of the other redevelopments throughout Belleville are not having them. And is that because, and this gets back to that stimulus, the developers don't want to put them there, or, and if they don't, how do you create a stimulus for them to build them in those different areas around throughout the city? Do you understand my question? And I think, sorry, and your stimulus, it gets back to that tax rebate, which now I understand as opposed to a loan. So the tax rebate does help for sure. But how do we get the developers to build this affordable rental and housing units throughout the city instead of kind of pushing them into one certain part of the city?
So that was a big question that our project wanted to resolve. So when we had our early stakeholder meetings in Public Information Center, it was determined that the need is widespread. Everywhere in Belleville is in need of affordable housing. So the programs are designed to incentivize a variety of types of affordable rental housing units. And that's why something like the second unit in a new construction project or program is beneficial, because it's looking at ways at how can we incentivize the inclusion of rental units in something like a standard subdivision that's only going to have single family homes, because it's really hard to incentivize that type of development. So that's where we developed these programs that look at that need specifically to try to figure out how we can get those units more widespread. So the programs are designed to reach a number of different types of developments. So from adding a second unit in a building that you already own, to if I'm looking to build a brand new house, I can get some money back for adding a second unit during construction. Or if I'm a developer and I'm looking at building a brand new apartment building that is entirely affordable housing, there's incentives for that. And there's also incentives for new buildings that only have partial affordable rental housing units. So really trying to get the whole spectrum of what's going to be the right incentive to work for each of those levels of development, so that we can start to see those units be spread out throughout the city and integrated into communities rather than happening in pockets.
Great, thank you. Just hopefully the developers will come on board.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much. And again, great presentation, very well done. Does this model, and I'm assuming you've done some other cities in Canada, is this very much like we're seeing in other cities in terms of the incentives that are being proposed? Is there anything different that we're doing that other cities haven't done, or is this pretty much the most up to date in terms of what we're doing for CIP?
So the community improvement plan is, as far as I know, an Ontario specific planning mechanism. So we looked at what other communities in Ontario were doing with this plan, and it's been a struggle across all municipalities right now to try to figure out how to address affordable housing using all the tools in the toolbox, and the CIP being one of them. This plan is certainly innovative, and there are programs in here that we have not seen in other plans. So looked at what the best practices were across the board, and then looked at how we can model that to fit Belleville's unique circumstances and build on that to capture that broader spectrum. So I do know that the ministry is actually using this plan as an example right now for other municipalities to look at, to how they can now adapt to their community improvement plans to do something like Belleville's looking at.
Excellent, and thank you. And my specific questions are on program 4 and 5. So between the second units in existing housing rebate and the second units in new construction. So in existing, it would be 2,500, but only 500 for new construction. And just wondering if there was discussion at all, whether that recommendation in the number 5 could also be for number 4. And just knowing from being in a new home in the past, it is about a $25,000 upgrade, and this was without plumbing for a kitchen to put a unit in that would be furnished or at least a secondary unit. Wondering why only 500 for the new build, and I can certainly understand the cost in an existing housing, but would it not make sense to do the same rebates for both?
We can certainly adjust that to be more attractive of an incentive program. A lot of the numbers are about finding the right balance between not overcommitting the city's resources. But we can take a closer look at that and see if that will work as well.
Okay, great. And I know council will have to grapple with the costs next of all this and what that is going to cost. But I think, to me, it's also about our targets. So we had set at the Housing Summit, and I know it wasn't in your recommendations, but very important, 1,000 new rental units, affordable rental units. And we did talk about, I remember talking about doubling housing, but that's not included with the CIP. However, it is included with, say, the downtown portion, looking at how many units we can see developed. And that would be, I think, to the best use of council to see where that's going to go. So I think, to me, I know council, we can discuss those and have targets, and that's tied to the budget. But I also think that if we're looking at attainable numbers, to me, we have more new construction. We have certainly a significant amount of homes being built in the city every year. And it would also be good to look at what incentives are going to take for homeowners when they go to the bank to say, I want to build that unit. I'm going to have some income. In the bank saying, well, if you can get 10% rebate as one of the stipulations, $25,000 or $2,000 or $2,500. To me, that's just a little extra we can give to make sure we're attaining that 1,000 new units over so many years. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have anybody else speaking to this or any members of the public? Okay, yep. Mr. Firestone, you'll be added here shortly. Mr. Firestone, I believe you're in the meeting now.
I am, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I can. So you can proceed with your presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Committee and DESTA for setting this up. I just have a small tweak that I'd like to suggest to the SIP plan. And I've got a few slides here, and I promised DESTA I wouldn't take longer than 4.5 minutes. So the program 7 says that downtown residential above commercial building permit fee rebate. And I'm all in favor of that because the building I'm about to show you will have a number of suites and micro suites above grade, but it may also have some suites at grade. Next slide, please. So this handsome fellow on the left is me, and you all know this building. It's the China Gate building, built in 1872. If you didn't know that, quite a long time ago. It will celebrate its 150th anniversary. And so this is me just doing a building inspection before we purchased the building about a month ago. Next slide, please. Now, this is what it looked like back in the 70s, I guess, in what was one of its heydays. It had 3 stores at grade, including one called Lincoln Shoes, and then it had some apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Next slide, please. The problem with retail space and ground floor space, not just in Belleville, but in many cities in Canada and the United States, is that to put in maybe a shoe store at grade means you run into competition from an Amazon company like Zappos.com. It's very difficult to compete with those kind of uses. So some other use has to be conceived for that space. Next slide, please. And again, bringing the general store, the hardware store back to Front Street doesn't seem to be very practical, given that Home Depot is about 9 minutes away from this building up by the highway. Next slide, please. So whatever is going to be done with this building, as we do an historic renovation, my wife and I, of the building, it must be internet resistant, it must be pandemic resistant, and it must be big box resistant. Those are the 3 criteria that I'm using. Next slide, please. So what are some of the uses that might work? I've talked to the head of the BIA, the executive director of the BIA. I've talked to the mayor and other people in Belleville, and they're all suggesting that the downtown be a focus for leisure activities, entertainment activities, maybe artisanal activities as well. So perhaps a hairdresser or a nail bar. Next slide, please. It could be a photography studio. One of my clients does dog grooming and cat grooming. Next slide, please. Could be a physiotherapy clinic or registered massage clinic. These are all uses that are internet resistant and certainly big box resistant as well. Could be a yoga studio or chiropractic practice. Next slide, please. Could be an Etsy craft or both teaching, creating crafts and craft sales. Next slide, please. This is Picton. Many of you probably know what's going on at the Picton Air Base, not far from where you are now. This is the air base that has been repositioned for makers and artisans. And these are pictures I took at the air base. And Maggie's Gone to Pot does not refer to a weed store. It refers to pottery, but there's an infinite number of gigs and artisans looking for space. Next slide, please. Could be a woodworking shop. Next slide, please. This is something else that I'm not sure council will be comfortable with, but certainly in Europe, Airbnb, which is kind of a residential use and an innkeeper use, could also be something that is done at grade. This is an Airbnb listing in Venice. Next slide, please. Something we're having a lot of success with, and to John on the call here, when you raised the question about affordable housing, we're having a lot of success with buildings built like this and designed like this, where you have what you see on the screen there is a 2-bedroom unit. 1 bedroom is self-contained in a lock-off suite, and a bigger 1 bedroom as well. And this is one of the keys that we found in right from British Columbia across Canada to provide affordable housing. For example, this is elder care. This is a building in White Rock, BC, which was designed for elder care. The caregiver lives in the blue suite, the little lock-off suite, and the elder lives in the bigger 1-bedroom apartment. Next slide, please. It could be something else on the ground floor. One of my clients in Alberta, in Calgary, runs a company called Little Steps Academy. And that's a business model where they provide day home services, but the early childhood educator also lives on site. Next slide, please. So I call this toggle space. It's an idea that I've pioneered across Canada and the United States, and I'm sure it's not original to me. In fact, it's an old idea. So I call it toggle space for lack of a better term. And that is that ground floor space could be all commercial, could be all residential, or it could be some mix of the two. That's why I call it toggle space. It could go back and forth over time. Next slide, please. The building that we are restoring, and if you go down to Front Street, you'll see there's a lot of work going on there now because it was in sad shape. It's a wonderful building, but obviously has not been well taken care of. The 3rd floor will have 6 micro suites, and this is one of the keys to providing affordable housing. So a typical micro suite would be about 300 square feet, maybe 400 square feet. It's in that range, although the University of British Columbia is building them as small as 145 square feet. It has a bedroom, a bathroom, it has a micro kitchen, an entertainment and work area, and hopefully some access to the outside. Next slide, please. It's part of something that is called the FEHAJ movement. It's kind of an awkward term, but it stands for every home a job. And I think that's kind of where I'm going with this toggle space. And there's another riff on that, which is FEJA, for every job, a home. And you'll see where I'm going with that in a moment. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide. So what I was going to ask council to consider, and maybe it's permitted under the new official plan, I'm not 100% sure about that, is to allow an old form of development to reappear, if you will, where somebody could have a salon, a spa in front, and have a micro suite in back at grade, and that SIP building permit fee rebate, excuse me, would not only apply to residential space above grade, but also at grade. So I hope I did it in under 5 minutes, Desta.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? Mr. Baltutis.
That was a good presentation, Bruce, but I kind of disagree with the initial one that I think downtown, to create or to encourage more people to live in downtown area, we do need like a small general store, hardware store, that you don't have to go out to Home Depot to get a box of screws and or a little bit of caulking or a little bit of paint where you need a car. So people who are living downtown don't have to have a car. So if there was stores that could accommodate things like even a grocery store downtown, I'd love to see it. I'd use it. I'm within walking distance. I would go down there. A hardware store, even a small liquor store. You know, those type of ground level businesses. I think that would help draw a lot of people downtown to live in the upper apartment buildings or apartments that you're thinking of building. And I think I think it would get more people downtown. I think it would draw more people downtown if we had that downtown, those type of businesses.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against it. What I'm arguing for is to allow residential uses not only to appear above grade, but also at grade in support of some kind of commercial use. So if you had the hair salon or the nail bar or a law office for that matter, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that people, you know, a lawyer might live in back and have have his legal practice out front. You know, Street Legal, I think, was a show on CBC at one point. So I'm not arguing against it. I'm just arguing that I would like to see a little bit of flexibility in that.
Agreed. Thank you. And good luck with your project. I'm looking forward to seeing how.
Well, I welcome you guys to come by anytime, and wait till you see some of the things that we're uncovering. 100-foot long original timber growth, double brick historic buildings, much like Zubin Gillespie has been doing, I think, for 10 or 11 years in your town.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Bruce, and welcome to downtown, and thank you for investing in it. It seems very exciting. We're all very excited for you. And have you just, my question is, have you talked to staff yet, and what have you gotten back initially just from that kind of idea?
Yeah, so far I've talked to staff, both in the plans side of thing and in the buildings branch. Also, of course, I had a chance to meet your mayor, and people were very supportive. But as you know, Councillor, support is great, but it also has to comply with the official plan and zoning. And so that, I think, still is out. And that's a question that I think Desta and others, Stephen and others, will have to answer.
Okay, and yeah, I think that's what we'll probably ask the next portion of staff to look. I know that it's been mentioned before from several other developers to see that the ground floor is used, and that's a novel, innovative idea. Just going to the micro suites too. Yeah.
Can I just mention
it's something that we're. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor, can I just mention that for me, this, I'm 68 years of age, that the actual concept goes back to when I was a little boy, about 5 or 6 years of age. My grandfather came from Russia to Canada in 1909, and he had his barber shop in front, and he had a little apartment in back on St. Patrick Street in Ottawa. And in that apartment in back of the barber shop, he raised 3 little girls, one of whom was my mother.
Well, I can tell you I'm in the hotel business, and the hotel rooms are now going to these smaller units.
Absolutely.
And it works. People, I guess they have smaller spaces and they pay more. I don't know how that works sometimes, but that's business. But I think, given what we're looking at for space downtown, working on trying to get more residential units downtown.
Yeah.
I know that developers have mentioned that it would be helpful to have some kind of first floor, and perhaps that's something we'll ask staff. But thank you for what you're doing, and good luck with your project.
I appreciate the time tonight you've given me. I really mean that.
Okay, any other questions to Mr. Firestone? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation and all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have anybody else registered? Okay, and nobody else? Okay, sure. Mr. May Anderson will be joining.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. First, I want to thank the City of Belleville for taking action on the issue of affordable housing by creating this draft CIP. One challenge we see with the draft is its definition of affordable housing. It refers to the provincial policy statement, which defines affordable rental units as a unit for which the rent does not exceed 30% of gross annual household income for low and moderate income households, or a unit for which the rent is at or below the average market rent of a unit in the regional market area. So first, let's discuss defining affordable as at or below the average market rent. The province considers Belleville to be a part of the County of Hastings Quintian District regional market area. Average pricing and annual household income under this definition would be affected by statistics from villages, towns, other cities, and rural properties across all of Hastings County. This could artificially depress affordable rental amounts below what developers would need to generate the rental income to justify any investments in affordable housing. Conversely, it could also mean that a newly constructed rental unit priced at 99% of the average market rent in our regional market area might be considered affordable under the province's definition, when in reality it would not make affordable equal to accessible. Definitions of affordable housing tied to market rents also become problematic and ineffective when markets become overheated, like what we're experiencing in Belleville right now. Over the past 18 months. There's also another disparity between average market rents and average asking rents. Market is what people are already paying, while asking is what available units are demanding. Therefore, basing rents on market rents ignores the reality of what is being asked for in the market, making affordability even more difficult for many to achieve. Affordable can be defined by the provincial policy statement as 30% of monthly income in households with incomes in the lowest 60% of the income distribution for the regional market area. At this level, affordable rents are still too high, leaving out many families who are trying to make ends meet and struggling to find a decent and affordable place to live. Any definition of affordable should be based on the realistic ability of someone to pay. Median income, the statistical halfway point of income levels in the community, should be the benchmark where the 30% factor is used to determine the overall definition of affordable. Area median income numbers should also be broken out by size of household so that rents can be determined based on income and unit types, because one size does not fit all. These numbers should also be updated annually, but by doing this, our definition of affordable becomes accessible to more people in our community. It becomes a made in Belleville solution and better reflects the reality on the ground. Secondary for our comments relate to property types, and please allow me to stray a little bit here. While we realize the CIP was specifically designed to focus on affordable rental incentives, we believe this ignores an opportunity to help the broader housing crisis that we face and help solve that. It's a crisis that includes increasingly out of reach opportunities for families to achieve home ownership in the city of Belleville. The world has changed drastically in the last 2 years since the housing summit. And we don't think anyone anticipated what the pandemic has created in terms of drastically increased demand for purchase housing in the Belleville market. So while it is out of scope, we certainly think that the city of Belleville should take the time to reassess whether ownership should be included in the new CIP or in another version of it in the near future. The CIP should consider more pathways approach to housing, including looking at incentives to help more people in our community achieve home ownership. Could be in the form of some programs outlined in the draft CIP for home builders, where the savings per unit must be passed along to home purchasers. Another method could be property tax incentives designed to lower the monthly cost of home ownership, or it could be in the form of down payment assistance programs, such as the ones successfully deployed in the city of Barrie and Simcoe County and in the city of Kitchener and region of Waterloo. Even if there are no specific incentives geared towards ownership units today, we feel affordability definitions within the Belleville CIP should be expanded to allow for potential ownership incentives in the future. Now, we understand the draft CIP was driven by the outcomes of the housing summit. We recognize any programs within any CIP must be done within the context of what the city of Belleville can afford. And we understand the need for a focus on affordable rental units. That's one of the reasons that Habitat for Humanity Prince Edward Hastings is pivoting and proposing to build the Habitat Horizon Center. All that we're saying is, if possible, increase the scope if you can, either now or in the future, to include home ownership incentives, because enabling more families to purchase their own homes is another positive for our community. Based on current economic forecasts, we're likely to have historically low interest rates for a generation. So developing programs at the municipal level that encourage more home ownership would allow more families to take advantage of these unique circumstances and purchase a place to call home. So those are our comments for the Planning Committee on the draft Community Improvement Plan, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. May Anderson. Any questions from committee members? I don't see any. Certainly can relate to your comments on affordability. I recall early on when we were talking about our housing crisis here and of course across the country, defining affordability can take on many forms, and certainly one thing that we need to be acknowledged of is the ability to pay, and that is based on income, and we need to have a good understanding of the average income and know that there are many people that are working, but obtaining the affordability for housing is certainly miscalibrated, if you will. So certainly I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else registered? Just checking with staff. Okay, that is everybody. Very good. I just need a motion to refer this to the other portion of the meeting. Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? That is carried. And I need a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting. Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Williams. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. I see everyone is in attendance. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Councillor Sanderson has recognized 7.1, and that is noted. Any other disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. A confirmation of the minutes of the City Council Planning Committee meeting and Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on October 5th, 2020. Moved by Mr. Joyce, seconded by Mr. Baltutis. All in favor? That's carried. No deputations, no correspondence, Mr. Clerk. Okay, moving on to referrals from the public meeting. Notice of 6.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 847 Thrasher Road, 863 Thrasher Road, and 834 Bronk Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File numbers B-77-1121. Owner is Jeff Hannafin and Devin Mulvey, Christopher and Elizabeth Conder, and Peter Hollett and Glenda O'Reilly. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors Limited. The policy planners report number PP-2020-51 refers, and the resolution is that report number PP-2020-51 dated November 2nd, 2020 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 847 Thrasher Road, 863 Thrasher Road, 834 Bronk Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Ms. Brown, seconded by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. 6.2, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 1187 Bethel Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1122. Owner is David Latchford and Shelley Ann Stone. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors Limited. Policy planners report number PP-2020-52 refers. The resolution reads that report number PP-2020-52 dated November 2nd, 2020 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 1187 Bethel Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any questions or comments on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion's carried. Okay, Councillor Sanderson has declared a conflict on 7.1. Oh, sorry, 6.3. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Initial report to consider new draft community improvement plan for the City of Belleville. Manager Policy Planning's report number PB-2020-50 refers, and the resolution is that report number PP-2020-50 dated November 2nd, 2020 regarding the draft community improvement plan for the City of Belleville be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Ms. Brown, seconded by Mr. Joyce. Any questions or comments? Councillor Williams.
Thank you. So just further to my comments from the public meeting, just to staff. So Desta, I see you popped on there. So in terms of my my question about recommendation 5, going from program 5 to program 4, can you just let me know from staff perspective you discussed that, or were there anything that you'd think about that?
There haven't been specific discussions regarding that, but I can definitely see your point and where you're coming from in terms of incentivizing that type of affordable or just rental unit, because the second units actually can be not by definition affordable. It will serve to increase the overall housing stock. It's certainly something that we can take a look at, and overall it can be something that is considered in the overall financial modeling for this CIP, and just understanding where where the city's resources are going to be focused. So it's certainly something that we can take back and look at with our consultants and consider.
Okay, thank you. And just a question to staff when you present this to council, are you using targeted numbers that we had? I know we didn't have that in the original recommendations, but when we present that, will we be saying over a certain period, this is the numbers we're looking at, and therefore when we're considering the budget, that's where I'm getting to, that we're saying, yes, the money is going to be justifiable because this is what we're looking at. And that's why I'm looking at the 5 to 4, that, I think this could be a significant part of our rental market. And that's something we're trying to solve. So does that make sense to you?
It's a great point, and it is something that we can perhaps qualify any financial discussions on. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, through the chair. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate and thank Desta McAdam for all her efforts in producing what I consider to be a very critically important planning document that will serve our city well for decades to come. And if I can quote Mr. Baksh in the previous meeting, it really is truly groundbreaking. And so I'm very proud of the document that's come forward. So it's the community improvement plans. It's a bit of a eureka moment in terms of our efforts to create some financial stimulus for affordable housing in our city, along with infill in the brownfield areas as well as the downtown. And there are 17 programs that can be tapped into as the city tries to remove financial obstacles. And we looked to our development partners to sort of ramp up the supply of affordable housing. So demand certainly is not an issue, right? And the report itself indicates that the first intake will be in the spring of 2021. And I'd like to see our development partners given the opportunity to be in a position to actually be shovel ready by that time, if possible. So in order to advance the community improvement plan to get it in front of council, I'm just wondering what can be done. I'd like to ask Desta either what she can do or what we can do to bring it forward. Our next council meeting is November 23rd. That may be too soon, but if possible, I'd like to see us work towards bringing it to council at that time. And therefore, we'd be able to review it, make changes where necessary, and put it into effect so it's up and running by year end or the first of the new year.
Go ahead,
Well,
Ms.
thank you,
McAdam.
Councillor Sanderson. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Sanderson, for those kind words. It's a document that us as staff are also very proud of, and grateful to our consultants for helping us create something that is quite innovative and hopefully will serve us well over the coming years. With respect to your question, about facilitating this, the approval of the plan. The next opportunity for staff to bring a recommendation report forward would be at the next Planning Advisory Committee meeting in December. We could certainly work towards achieving that target. In that respect, also accommodating the public comments that have come in for this meeting in advance of this meeting as well, returning a recommendation report at our earliest capacity and really making this a priority to move forward so that we can get it in front of council is certainly something that we will do our best to as staff and work towards that target. So, you know, once we're able to gather all public comments and respond to them in this in a further recommendation report that could be brought forward as early as December, that would certainly be our hope as well.
Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, so I can just continue down that path. I don't have the calendar of council meetings and planning advisory committee meetings in front of me, but I'm wondering if rather than wait for a month until the next one, if we could sort of stagger the next one if it's 2.5 to 3 weeks from now, such that it falls before a council meeting, and we can roll it into the perhaps the December council meeting, if that's possible.
Well, Councillor Sanderson, I'm just looking at a calendar here as our staff. So we would have our next Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and I'll look to staff if I'm wrong, is Monday, December 7th. And then we typically have just one council meeting in December, which would be, I believe, December 14th. And I'm getting a nod from staff that that will be the case. So because there's been some comments by members of the committee as well as members of the community, and some of them are a little extensive, I think staff would need the time, unless they tell me differently, to at least have the cycle of the month to get this all analyzed back to the committee. But certainly if we're looking at it on December the 7th at the committee level, unless there were some drastic changes to the document, we could possibly have it at council for the 14th.
Okay, that sounds good.
And I'm getting
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Does that satisfy you there?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so staff got some work to do here. Very good. Ms. Brown.
My apologies, trying to get it out of mute. I just wanted to ask to all of the consultants and to Desta and to Stephen for the work on this CIP. I have two vested interests in this. Downtown, of course, being the one most obvious to people, but the inclusion of the tax increment equivalent rebate as it relates to the commercial space in downtown is something that we heard and continue to hear repeatedly from those building owners who are quite vested in terms of renovating and offering new residential space in the downtown. So I know from speaking with several of the building owners, that's something that is going to be very well received once it's approved to move forward. And as equally so, the facade program has been something that has been very well used. And we're seeing the fruits of that through the downtown core in terms of a lot of our buildings being restored back to their heritage state, which is something, it sounds silly, but the paint and the facades and the dental moldings and that type of thing. So I know that there's been a lot of building owners who are making good use of that program, who are a little bit nervous about whether it would be continued on. So from the downtown portion, certainly program 7 right through to number 12, it was something that I think will be very, very well appreciated and well used by our downtown members. On the affordable rentals I have to echo what Mr. Glenn May Anderson said, because I also serve on the Habitat board. And I think there's two things. Is I know from the forum that was held last year, there was a lot of discussion about our very diminished state of rental units, but affordable housing and home ownership is something equally so. So if there's an opportunity to either include it on this particular round, even as an observation, something we could look at for future updates on the CIP. I would like to fully support that concept as well. That's all I have to offer, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other, Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do some good stuff tonight, and I just want to touch on what Councillor Sanderson said and Catherine Brown, that and everybody so far. There's been a lot of good stuff with the affordable housing and the rental plans for the city in that report. I guess I just wanted to know, how much input did the local home builders have in that report? Is DESTA still there? Is DESTA, would you be able to, like, what role did they play in? Were they part of the discussions? Because I know they've been at the forefront, part of the Housing Summit. Just the key role that area builders play.
So there was some targeted stakeholder engagement. Unfortunately, I wasn't with the city of Belleville at that time, so perhaps Monica would actually be best to speak to that, because she would have been present during the initial stakeholder engagement when we received, or when we asked, area stakeholders for those comments and input. I think Monica's might still be present. She just needs to be entered into the meeting if possible.
Okay, we'll get that.
Councillor Kelly, it's Steve Ashton here. So in terms of keeping in close contact as a stakeholder, the Quinte Home Builders Association, Ruth Eswick, I had contacted her even before we published the report and let her know that it was coming out and that she would be circulated as an interested party. So they were, provided advance, and I think she would have circulated that information to her members as well. So whether we've heard any positive comments from them, don't necessarily think we have heard any comments, but that's probably a good thing in this case. I think they would be very happy with some of the incentives that are being discussed here.
Hi again. I missed part of that as I was rejoining the meeting, so forgive me if I repeat anything that Stephen just mentioned. But yeah, I can provide a little bit of background from before DESTA's time, when we had our focus groups with a number of stakeholders. So in December, we had I think 2 or 3 days straight of stakeholder meetings for the CIP, and this included the Belleville Downtown Improvement Area, the facade committee, members of the Planning Advisory Committee, a number of housing agencies, as well as a focus group specifically targeting builders and landlords. So we had a number of local area developers, as well as members of the Landlord Association, to provide their perspectives on what would work and what wouldn't, and how to tailor these programs appropriately. So we were able to take all of that input from this diverse set of perspectives and try to find that balance that would be the most effective.
Okay, is that good, Councillor Kelly? Yeah, okay. Thank you, very much, Ms. Bellow.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments on the draft report? Councillor Williams.
Sorry, just one more follow-up on Mr. Firestone's question to staff. So the units he was talking of a commercial with a micro suite behind, is that an official plan question, or can you just let us know what discussions you've had around that with him?
Okay.
Mr. Ashton's gonna jump in.
Okay, so our official plan, as we have provided, we've written enabling policies in the new or proposed official plan. to allow for residential at the rear in certain circumstances. So obviously it's not a good idea to allow, you know, storefronts to disappear, because then that would take away the attractiveness of what people want to go downtown for. But we have made provisions. I mean, there are some buildings that perhaps are, you know, well over 2,000 square foot where we know that, you know, commercial footprint would be difficult to support. So they are enabling policies. It would further be implemented through the zoning bylaw, and we're moving towards that. But obviously, the official plan has to go through a public consultation process as well. And so we'll, you know, there may be comments, positive or negative, about that. We don't know at this point in time, but we are moving in that, or proposing that direction under certain circumstances.
Okay, thank you. And the second one I had was, when it comes to housing downtown, we also have had a report we've seen, council seen before, intensification reports. I know that's part of also the official plan. It's the only intensification for the city is downtown. Is that something that fits with the CIP at all? I guess some of the tier, is that where intensification would fit in terms of the CIP meshing with intensification and with future development of downtown?
It certainly could. The benefit of the affordable rental housing CIP is that it is citywide. So there's opportunities across the city to, you know, to apply for these programs and to perhaps receive funding towards these projects, so that they can be used in various ways. One of the benefits of having all of the programs now together and talking to one another in one coordinated document is that it could be beneficial for an affordable rental housing project to take place in downtown and make use of a variety of the programs available, not only through the affordable rental housing CIP, but also through the downtown CIP. So in which case, you know, that could serve to benefit multiple goals of the CIP and could be a very attractive project in terms of its application, and it could be competitive in that way.
Okay, great. And I think the last puzzle was CMHA in terms of some of their affordability programs. Some of the CIP, if a building owner developer were to connect these, does that not open the door with CMHA with some of that funding as well? Is that something that we've identified, that by putting in place some of these CIP initiatives, it is a check mark also for the next level of funding, say federal or otherwise?
So there is opportunity through CMHC. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
CMHC.
That's okay.
I think the other one's a hockey league.
Certainly. So the way that we propose the draft CIP is that it allows for that type of coordination of funding as well. And I think that, you know, once the city has these incentives and programs in place, it makes it much more attractive for a potential builder or developer with an affordable rental housing project in mind to come to Belleville and not only be able to apply for funding through CMHC and through the incentives that are offered through that programming, but also to apply through the city's programs as well. So yes, there's that opportunity to kind of to use that CMHC funding and build off of that using the municipal programs.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments? See none. I've got a resolution on the floor. All in favor? That's carried. All right, moving on to report 7.1. Councillor Sanderson has declared a conflict, so we'll have staff remove him. There we go. And so 7.1 recommendation report for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 1507 Casey Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1119. Owner is David and Catherine Potts. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors Limited. Policy planners report number PP-2020-53 refers. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning a portion of the retained parcel from prime agriculture, PA, to rural residential, rural RU zone and that the two severed parcels from the prime agricultural PA zone to rural residential RR zone as a condition of consent applications B3019 and 3119. Need somebody to move that. Councillor Culhane and Councillor Kelly. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. 7.2, recommendation report for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 is, oh, sorry. Let me wait to, we'll get Councillor Sanderson back in the meeting. There he is. Okay, 7.2, recommendation report for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 193 North Park Street, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1120. Owner is Quinny Senior Citizens Homes. Applicant is Andy Gertzma, Gertzma Construction Limited. Principal Planners Report number PP-2020-54 refers. And the resolution reads, the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That application B-77-1120 to amend the City of Belleville zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended for 193 North Park Street, City of Belleville be approved as follows. That zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended be amended to increase the maximum unit count of the residential 6th density R6-3 zone and add additional special provisions to permit the proposed 4-story 54-unit addition to the existing seniors home. Somebody to move that. Councillor Sanderson, Mr. Baltutis, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. Moving on to information matters. 8.1 official plan and zoning bylaw amendment monitoring report. Report to November 2nd, 2020. I need a motion to receive that. Councillor Kelly and Mr. Jennings, any questions on that information? Mr. Joyce.
I've mentioned this before, probably 3 meetings ago. I'm just curious, we have 3 applications that are still being deferred. I wonder, before the end of the year, will they be coming back to planning? Those being the Hotel and Millennium, the Potters Creek subdivision, and the trucking terminal in Thurlow. Maybe Mr. Ashton or someone can respond if any or all of those are coming back, or there's still more work to be done.
So we have had meetings with the each of those applicants and have identified concerns from the public meetings. They are working to address those concerns. Some of them are working to update their applications. And when we do get complete applications from them that we're satisfied, we'll bring forward recommendation reports. But in terms of timing, that would be within their hands.
Okay, so they expected to come back, but we don't know timetable at this point.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion to receive. All in favor? Motion's carried. 9, general business and inquiries. Anything? No, seeing none, okay. Closing remarks. The Planning Advisory Committee's applicable decisions will be forwarded to City Council for consideration, forming part of the agenda for the City Council meeting to be held at a future date. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Baltutis and Mr. Jennings, all in favor? That motion's carried. Thank you.